Hi, everybody, and welcome to Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP. I'm your host, Greg Creamer. Great to have you with us here as we continue to explore all of the personalities and stories that are unfolding in the world of North American road racing. And again, it's absolutely fabulous to have you with us. And we, as always, have our very special news segment. And that means I get to welcome in my friend Calvin Fish. Hey, Cal, how's it going?
Very well, mate. Great to see you again.
Likewise. I love the backdrop, by the way. That's absolutely fantastic. Really fits in with what we're talking about here. But we want to start off this segment. I think we want to talk a little bit about the IMSA situation, the WEX scenario as it relates to LMDH, or now what they're going to call GTP. The Cadillac just turned, we don't know where it was. There were some pictures that were taken. I'm sure that'll be sussed out. But it's turned its active first laps on a racetrack. Exciting news when we look ahead to what's happening and what will be GTP in 23.
Well, it's very exciting, Greg, and it's go time, right? We're less than 200 days away, I think, from the Rolex 24. So for these teams to get the R&D done, get the track time under their belts and be ready for that very important opening to the 2023 season is going to be imperative. So we know that Porsche has been out since early in the year. They got over 6,000 K of testing done with that car. We understand there have been a few teething issues with the hybrid systems. There's been some supply issues, as you could certainly expect with the COVID situation and the global supply issues that we've been going through. But I understand that a lot of the manufacturers involved in that melting pot right now are collaborating to really identify some of the issues they're seeing on the dyno runs, some of the on-track testing that Porsche have done. So they're trying to really ramp up and accelerate this testing program. But excellent to see Alabama out behind the wheel of that Cadillac LMDH car. I understand it's at Putnam Park, certainly home to Chip Ganassi racing there in Indianapolis. And I also understand that Ricky Taylor's over in Europe for a couple of weeks now doing testing with the Acura chassis before they then move that to North American soil a little bit later this month.
And that makes sense, doesn't it, to have the manufacturers, since it's a spec hybrid unit. Obviously, they're not going to pass on any data that relates to their chassis, their car. But to help lock in the performance of that hybrid unit, it makes sense to have them work together, share that data.
It's so important because it's risky, right? If you think about it, 6 months' time, we're on track for the race weekend. So we need it to be a success. Everyone needs it to be a success, and I think the manufacturers recognize that. Porsche don't want to be the only team that can get to the 24-hour finish line. They need everyone to be in there and make it a competitive environment, invite and entice other manufacturers to join the party. So next year we have BMW, we have Cadillac, we have Acura, we have Porsche, and then Lamborghini are going to be doing their R&D through 2023 with the hope of embracing them here in the U.S. competition for 2024. So very exciting times. Then we've got the whole blending between hypercar and some of these teams going over to Europe and competing in WEC, and certainly the Le Mans 24-hour race. Penske going to be doing it with a Porsche for next year even. So very exciting times. A lot to sort out. I think the balance of performance, as we call it, in terms of getting those hypercars and the LMDH cars to coexist on the racetrack. I think where they're going to create their lap time may be quite different. The hypercars have four-wheel drive systems, so if you have any inclement weather, how do you balance all of that? So a lot of these mathematical problems have got to be sorted out by a lot more clever guys than you and I, but they'll get it right. It's certainly going to be great times.
Well, the interesting thing to me, too, is that Porsche has, once again, you just mentioned it, when they decide to do a program, they jump in, full commitment, and they always seem to come out of the box massively well tested relative to everybody else. But that's just part of their DNA, isn't it?
It is. I mean, they contested the early rounds this year in WEC with Dane Cameron, Philippe Nasr, and Emmanuel Collard because of the regulations with the grading there to get some time with the team going through the WEC rulebook, going to Le Mans and identifying what you need to do to be prepared for next year when they hit the ground running with the LMDH car. So they do their groundwork, they do their homework, they are fully prepped. They've got a base over in Germany, they've got a base here, obviously, in Mooresville, and they're going to to be ready to go. I mean, I think of all of the teams, when you think about Penske and you think about Porsche, so much success over the years, they'd have to be the favorites going in, but we certainly understand there's some super teams with Chip Ganassi Racing, Meyer Shank Racing, you've got Wayne Taylor Racing. These are top-notch teams that have performed at the utmost highest level in prototype racing for many years, so it's going to be tremendous competition next season.
Absolutely, and we did see that the new Peugeot hypercar made its racing debut at Monza, showed some serious pace in early practice. Wasn't quite there in qualifying, struggles in the race, but that is one futuristic, novel approach. No rear wing on that thing, all done through underbody aero. Pretty impressive.
It's really cool, isn't it? I think, I think the LMDH cars kind of take a similar vein. I mean, yes, you put your styling cues on there, but they're kind of in that template. I think with the hypercar regulations, it certainly allows someone like Peugeot to go out on a limb a little bit with their design philosophy there. And they obviously struggled with it. They anticipated running the full season, right? So they had to abandon that project and just wait until they were ready to go on track and be competitive. And they certainly had a very strong, I'm sure they'd like to be a little bit quicker, but right now, very strong. They're in the mix, let's put it that way, on their debut at Monza last weekend.
Yeah, impressive to come out. And when you think about Peugeot in prototype racing, they've got a pretty good history there. I'm sure they're going to get on top of it by the start of things next year. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about, I mentioned Monza. And there was a significant incident by one of the Aston Martin Racing Vantages when one of the drivers collected one of those sausage curbs and it flipped him over.
Yeah. Oh, but that's a big one.
Oh, it's a huge crash.
That's Christian Reed. Oh, no, it's not. That's 33.
That's Henry Chavez.
That's Henrique
What's
Chavez.
happened there?
Right, that is Exting the Roger.
I think he spun the car and got launched over the sausage curb.
Agreed.
I've seen some
In
single
backwards.
seated. Yeah, so watch it. There we go.
Oh, big impact.
That's why I don't like these sausage curbs here. The cars are travelling too fast to
Same
go
as
sideways.
Silver.
And we're starting to see this an awful lot with these really sort of abrupt curbs that are really creating some issues. And you think about that young lady that had that huge Sophia Floch, who had that huge shunt in F3 at Macau. That wasn't necessarily a sausage curb, but it was an abrupt curb. Do things need to change there? Because this seems to be happening a lot lately.
Well, track limits is such a hot button right now, Greg, in terms of not letting drivers explore areas of a race facility that they're not supposed to, keeping it between the white lines. So different circuits have had different approaches. I think what we can't do is basically design a track that creates these launching pads for these race cars, particularly cars that have very low ground height. So you get a GT car, they can probably run over them a little bit more, but depending on how you hit them, if you hit them sideways, then there's no deflection there. You can't absorb it with the bumps when you're hitting it with the side of the wheel and the side of the tire. So that's an issue, but I think we just have to learn. I mean, I think all of the circuits have to learn. I've always been a big proponent of not only just the curbs and the racing surface itself, but if we reflect to two of my favorite venues here in North America, think about Mid-Ohio. I used to run the driving school there, and I'd be very concerned if a car ran off, like through turn one. We saw Justin Wilson do it once. I think he broke his tailbone, the late Justin Wilson, that is, of course, because of the rough ride through the grass. So I think those areas have to be maintained, let alone the guardrails and things like that. We saw Joey Hand down the backstretch when he and Paul Edwards got together. Suddenly there was that access road that created this big launching pad, and he went for a tumble there. So we saw at Road America recently, I think it was the IndyCar weekend, down in turn 5, one of the single-seater cars got launched off the ramp on the right side into the brake zone. So some of the safer circuits that we have, you still have these extreme circumstances where something can happen. And what you have to do is walk away from that and think about it and how can we change things to make it better. We reflected last week about the Grand Prix where the Alfa Romeo got between the tire barrier and the safety catch fencing from the spectators. And again, lessons will be learned and we'll move forward and correct these things, I feel.
Yeah, and it's time to do that, but at some point you just have to, I think, accept the fact racing is risky as well, and you're never going to come up with a 100% solution. But I think there are things that can be done. We were talking a bit of Formula One last show as well, and really we talked about the excitement that's building because of 3 races and the new energy in F1. But there's some real potential, it sounds like, for a American driver to be back in Formula One this past week, or Monday, Tuesday, I guess it was. Colton Herta got a 2-day test in with McLaren in their 2021 car. Word is that if he impressed in that, he would get a couple of those runs in FP1 to help get his super license points for next year.
Well, one of the great new regulations this year, Greg, is that all of the F1 teams have to give 2 Friday practice sessions to a rookie. So I think teams are evaluating who may be a potential candidate for a race seat, whether it's next year or the year after. Ricciardo, as we know, has really struggled this year, and I'm a big Danny Rick fan, but for some reason it's not quite gelling. Is that the car's not that good, and Lando Norris is just a mega star? Putting Danny in the shade. But whether he sits around for next year or not, I think Zach Brown is certainly trying to create some safety nets there in terms of who he may fill that seat with if he does select to make a change there for the McLaren team. And I think Colton Herta is just an amazing, bright young talent, 22 years old. I think he's had 7 or 8 IndyCar wins already. He's won the Rolex 24 twice in 2 different classes. He won with BMW back in 19. He won this year in LMP2. So he's just amazing. I think he's just ripe for this opportunity. He was trying to get there with Andretti Autosport when they were trying to buy into the Sauber Alfa Romeo deal. That went away, unfortunately. I think Michael Andretti is still trying to figure his way out into Formula One. Right now, with the cost cap at about 140 million, it's an ideal opportunity for teams to make that break into it. But he's obviously getting some resistance from the existing teams there. They don't want to share the pot, so to speak. So he continues to work at that. But I think we've got Colton there. I think he's got all of the abilities. He's at the right age. And we've also got young American Logan Sargent, who's been doing some amazing things in the feeder series in Formula 2. He won a feature race at Silverstone a couple of weeks ago. He won another race at Austria last weekend under unusual circumstances, finished 4th on the road, but through various penalties to the top 3, ended up with another win. So he's got all of the ingredients too, and he's already associated with the Williams Formula One team. So it's really on the rise. We've talked about the popularity of the Formula One globally, but certainly here in the States, 3 Grand Prix next year. If we get an American driver or even maybe an American team, I think it's just going to go gangbusters from there.
As always, man, thank you so much. A great way to start off our show this week, and look forward to doing it again with you.
All the best, mate. Cheers.
All right. Thanks so much, Cal. And with that, we're going to take a quick little break, but of course, there's a lot more to come right here on Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP. So stay tuned.
Dr. Joe Ahern, chair of the Allegheny Health Network Autoimmunity Institute. I'm back here at Watkins Glen Speedway for another phenomenal weekend. And I have to tell you, there is a groundswell, I would say a building tsunami focused on research and awareness for relapsing polychondritis and autoimmune disease. It's actually phenomenal. Everyone is wearing Race for RP, autoimmunity racing hats. The decals are on the enormous rigs, the race cars, the helmets, and we are well on our way to solving this, and we appreciate all your support.
It's been amazing to see the growth over the last 3 years. It's been fast-paced, well received, well accepted amongst teams, drivers, mechanics. So these partnerships are important. You know, they give credibility, but more importantly, it's not just an awareness campaign. We need to do real research. We need to find results. There are patients at home that are, counting on us to do our job and to ultimately find a cure for relapsing polychondritis and connect the dots to other autoimmune diseases.
There are no greater or more passionate motorsports fans than you. Those who follow the IMSA circuit, road course racing, and open wheel excitement across North America. At Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP, we're determined to make fans a part of every show. So here's the deal. Everyone has one of these, and we all have the opportunity to capture something unique about the fan experience. Show us who you are, your passion for the sport. Have some fun, entertain the masses, and do it all in 60 seconds or less on video. Then upload your video to Dropbox, WeTransfer, or any other file sharing service, and send us the download link via email using the address fullthrottlemotorsportsmedia@gmail.com. Be creative, be bold, be a fan of the greatest and most competitive form of auto racing in the world. Show us what it's like on location at your track, your race cave. Entertain, amuse, what it's really like for you to be a fan. 60 seconds or less of video. Be certain to include your name, location, tell us a little bit about your video, and we'll sift through and share with the world your passion for racing. Just remember, all videos become the property of Entourage Management, LLC, and by sending us these videos, you give us the right to use them here on the show, on social media, and all forms of media and promotion. Remember, get creative. Show us what it's like to be a real fan and be a part of Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP. You know, one of our goals with this program is to let people know who the young guns in racing are. And with that, we have an absolutely fabulous partner in Porsche. And we've been taking a look at some of the young guns that have been coming up through the Porsche pyramid. We'll also, at some points, be taking a bit of time to visit with some of the drivers that have already come through that. But right now, we have one of the real exciting young guys currently in that Porsche Pyramid program. It's time for Rising Star, presented by Porsche, and we're going to visit with young Trenton Estep.
This is sort of your second time, in a way, through some of the Porsche Pyramid programming. In 2018, you won the old Porsche GT3 Cup, and it has since been replaced, obviously, by the Porsche Carrera Cup North America. And are you viewing this as a little bit as a second chance, another opportunity to make your name known through the Porsche Pyramid?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were fortunate enough to win it in 2018, which was a great accomplishment, but it's obviously a couple years ago now that I think about it. No, new car, new season, new team, new tires. It's a completely different series, so we're taking it as, like a brand new program, as we would any other racing season. So.
And this is your first year in it, and you're up against guys who have now, they're in their second year of this series, are not only familiar with the tracks, but these cars on these tires on these tracks. That has you chasing things a little bit, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely behind the eight ball as far as knowledge for car setups and just the car in general, right? We haven't had much time to test actually, so we're again behind the eight ball in that respect. But no, we're learning a lot. It's a brand new team for this year as well. We're growing each and every race weekend. So.
Now, you started off as a lot of young drivers do in karting, but it's my understanding that the very first year you made the step to driving a race car, Formula Ford, you won a championship. That had to be a pretty good indicator to you of, one, I can do this, and two, I want to.
Yes, sir. I've always had a passion for it, so I knew from day one when I first got my first go-kart I wanted to do it. But no, yeah, I made the transition from go-karts to Formula cars at 15, was fortunate enough to win 2 championships my inaugural year in cars, so it was a really good stepping stone into the race car world, right? So I built lots of relationships with that, and results came, and doors opened up. So that's how the start for race cars came for me.
You went through karts, you then went into some open wheel stuff. What made you decide to pursue GT racing, sports car racing?
That's a tough question, man. Formula car, the industry is it's a tough industry. It takes a lot of financial backing, and I felt like there was a lot more opportunity in sports cars than there was in open wheel. So yeah, that's what steered me. I was fortunate enough to come to the conclusion early and not invest a whole lot of resources into doing the latter for open wheel, and actually had some opportunities in sports cars that arrived actually after my first year in Formula cars. So that's how that whole door opened up for me.
And what made the light bulb go off, if you will, and say, I need to try Porsche in this pyramid program, both in 2018 when you won the championship and now with Carrera Cup?
Yeah, I saw the opportunity from the beginning. I said if I'm going to go to sports cars, I want to know what's the best pyramid to do and what's going to have the results to ultimately be, a factory driver in World Endurance Championship or an IMSA WeatherTech. And I saw that Porsche offered that pyramid system, and it's been successful in the past. And yeah, that's what steered me to go in the direction for GT3 Cup Challenge, and then again in Carrera Cup.
Thus far, what has been the one thing that has been the most impactful on you on this journey through the Porsche Pyramid?
I would say I was fortunate enough after I won the championship in 2018 to go to France and do the Porsche Junior Shootout. That was an unbelievable experience in itself. Got to build a whole lot of new relationships, and yeah, Porsche offered a great program for us to go and showcase our ability, and it was a great experience.
And Porsche keeps dangling these wonderful carrots in front of you guys. Obviously moving up into GT Daytona, maybe running GTD Pro as a factory gun. But now with the new LMDH program, that's got this paddock absolutely buzzing, especially with the announcements that Porsche has made. That's got to get the juices flowing and really be a motivator.
To be honest, that's what steered me to come back in the direction for Carrera Cup. Porsche's aspirations to do LMDH in the future, and I know they're putting a lot of resources back in that program with drivers and tech and people. So that was a big deciding factor for me to come back.
And a championship obviously relies strongly not just on drivers, not just on cars, and this car is obviously phenomenal, but also on teams. And with this team that you're involved in, relatively new team, but one that obviously you see great potential in.
Absolutely. Like I said, we are a brand new program, but Mark Kwame at MDK Motorsports has put together this unbelievable operation, as you can see behind us. It's a first-year program, but it doesn't feel like a first-year program. No, we've done unbelievable so far. We've had great results with what's given, and yeah, it's been great.
I think we've got a pretty good feel for what your aspirations are long-term here, but what are your aspirations in the next couple of years with the Porsche Pyramid program, with this series, and for yourself?
That's a great question. This whole season has taken so much focus. I haven't really put that much effort in. I put much thought into the next 3 or 5 years. I'm just really focusing on the first, next year. Hopefully we can end out the season on a great note, and hopefully maybe do some GT3 stuff in the future with Porsche. And yeah.
One of the things that I think is so great about the Porsche Pyramid is they understand the concept of you've got to give every driver an equal chance. And with this car, not only are these cars equal, aside from setup and that sort of thing, but you're on the same tires as everybody else. You can't buy horsepower, you can't buy aero, you can't buy sticky tires. It truly is in the driver's hands once everything is dialed up. I would think on one hand that's comforting because you're not going to have somebody outspend you necessarily in parts and speed, but it's also add a little bit of pressure to know that there aren't any excuses here, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, the cars are the same and the tires are the same, but there's a lot of unique ways to make the cars go quick. So that's what's helpful with being with programs that know what's going on. I've been with the series for a while. Just you learn over the course of time, right? So that's always a tough battle to go against, but we're doing a great job at it, and yeah.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to following you as your journey continues through the Porsche Pyramid, and obviously for this season in Porsche Carrera Cup North America. And we certainly appreciate you taking the time on a busy doubleheader weekend for you to sit down and visit us with us here on Full Throttle. Thanks, man.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
A young man with a big future ahead of him. With that, we're going to take a quick break here on Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP, but we will be back, so we hope you are too.
There are some parallels between racing and research in that it takes a team, it takes support, and without either of those, nothing happens, nothing moves forward. You really have to have a group of people who are each thinking in their own way to move things forward, but then all those people have to come together and sort of decide what direction they're going to go. And again, that's one of the benefits now. We have 3 different research projects going, and each of them maybe have a different objective, and who knows which one of them is going to be successful, but potentially it could be a big breakthrough for RP patients or even other autoimmune disorders out there.
Welcome back, everybody, to more with Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP. You know, when you think about a major series and where the future is, where they're headed, what the challenges are that they have to overcome, that requires a very, very strong leader. And relatively recently, the International Motorsports Association, or IMSA, found just such a man. And we had the opportunity a few weeks ago to visit with him at Watkins Glen and get some insight on what his challenges are and what his plans are in a great visit with the president and CEO of the International Motorsports Association, John Doonan.
John, when you were running the Mazda program and the prototype program, when I was announcing, I often referred to you as the busiest man in motorsports. And something tells me that when you made the switch and joined IMSA, that hasn't changed much.
You're exactly right. I do, though, thrive on that. It's been a sport that has given me so much over the years. As you know, 6 weeks old at Road America as a little boy when my dad was racing, and always wanted to be, I was the little boy on one side of the fence, wanting to be part of the action. And I've been so fortunate to live out both my first dream of being at Mazda and now an incredible honor and dream that's been given to me by Mr. France and the entire NASCAR family. So thrilled to be here, continuing to be quite busy with all we have going on, but really having the time of my life.
You know, I know you played competitive basketball when you were in college. Are you taking that level of competitive energy, and is that what drove you through Mazda and is now driving you here?
Yeah, I was fortunate to be able to sample a lot of sports. Basketball was my second love besides auto racing. But yeah, there's a little bit of that athlete performance, wanting to win. Obviously, in my position now, it's not always about us winning. It's about doing what's right for the sport. And that really is what drives, I know, the NASCAR organization, IMSA, all of the things that we do. So I do miss having a horse in the race. I watch the races with a different lens now. I obviously want to put on a great show for our fans, both here on site and through our NBC distribution. But it's a little hard sometimes. I don't have a car that I choose. I don't have a distinct interest in who wins. I just want a good show.
I have to think, though, that even though you were no longer with Mazda at the time, that comeback drive by the Mazda team at Petit last year after being 3 laps down, there had to be some pride there for you as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're sitting on a piece of asphalt that was this place of celebration 3 years ago here, and to see what the program did under Nelson Cosgrove's leadership, and then under Jonathan Applegate and Mo Murray's leadership, and ultimately under Multimatic. I said this in 19, they transformed the program. They delivered a race car, probably, arguably, I'm biased, but one of the most beautiful DPIs. But now you got a bunch of GTP cars that are getting unveiled that are absolutely stunning. So, but that was an awesome drive at Petit Le Mans, and sorry to see that program not be here now, but hopefully they'll come back around.
Well, they well might, because I think the energy we're feeling and hearing from this LMDH program, and the fact that they can run at Le Mans hypercars can run in IMSA, that has been a huge thing. And I wanted to get into that because when you joined IMSA, it was in very much an evolutionary period. And with the announcements we've had, and with that new program combining the opportunity to race anywhere globally, has to be massive.
It is massive. It answers a lot of questions. It's what the OEMs have wanted for a long time. Provide me a cost-effective package and rule set that allows me to run for an overall win. Box one, the fans. The fans want to see the best of the best, drivers, teams, manufacturers on the best circuits, both here in North America and in Europe, or in what Pierre Fillon and in the World Endurance Championship or the ACO are doing. So there's no question that we got the formula right. The market has spoken with the commitments from Acura, BMW, Cadillac, Porsche, now Lamborghini and the GTP. And then of course in GT, Ford told us 6 months ago they're coming with a new Mustang. So we're at a time of great lift in the sport. Insanely proud of it, feel very fortunate to be a part of it. But the convergence that we've developed through Jim France's relationship with Pierre, my relationship with my colleagues Pierre and Frederic at Bennett, we really have worked at it. And Don Pano, Scott Atherton, a lot of people worked at it for years to come. We're now just the beneficiaries of it. But I think in the end, the fans are the beneficiary. They're going to see some incredible racing, which they're seeing now, but it's going to get even better.
Oh, I don't think there's any question of that. But you bring up a good point. For the OEMs and the teams to have an affordable way to go prototype racing, go for the overall win. We're in a bit of a difficult economy right now, obviously, so that's got to be more and more critical. Could this have come at a better time to have this platform? And also, keeping everything affordable for the fans to be able to come out and enjoy this. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it is for sure. We have a philosophy at IMSA, 3 things: cost effective, entertainment driven, automotive industry marketing tool.
IMSA Racing provides one of the best fan experiences, whether watching at home or in person at the racetrack.
The grid is packed. It is a perfect day for sports car racing.
The at-track experience allows you unprecedented access to the drivers and teams. Each ticket to an IMSA race includes paddock and pre-race grid access. You can literally meet the drivers minutes before they climb in the car.
And if we keep those 3 things in our sights, that's going to help us drive those types of decisions. And then as we get into tricky times, obviously starting in 2020, nobody told me there was a global pandemic coming. Obviously the economy is challenging. So we have to continue to get a pulse on the paddock, both our privateer teams as well as the OEM-based programs. And once again, we don't go to Daytona and make decisions in a vacuum. We get a read on the pulse, as I say, of the paddock, of our partners, and try to make the best decision we can with the information we have about venues, about time at venues. The run time is critically important. Every lap is costing you in tires, fuel, and even time on the engine. So we're very sensitive to that. We want to make the right decisions for the long-term sustainable health of the series and all of our platforms. And Lord knows we've packed them in here this weekend.
That's absolutely a fact. I mean, this paddock is just jammed, as is the fan areas are just loaded. And this is a race, the 6 hours, obviously, that's always been a huge draw. But IMSA seems to be seeing that regrowth a little bit. And one of the questions I have is, in this modern era, sporting fans in general, they have lots of options. And then you look at just motorsports fans, lots of options there. What does IMSA do down the road here, looking to make sure that those motorsports fans go, IMSA, that's where we want to be really active and be a part of it?
Well, it starts with our partners. We had a marketing work group with our OEM partners primarily yesterday, and they see this, as I said earlier, as a marketing platform. So you go to the vendor midway, you see the automotive displays where fans can engage with the road-going brothers and sisters of the race cars that they're seeing on the track. So it starts with that. Then you have a partner like WeatherTech that absolutely leverages motorsport in their advertising. Shows the fans that what we do on the racetrack is absolutely a driving force in product development and also in getting the word out. NBC, of course, huge partner for us. Great broadcasts either on NBC Network or USA, and then we've seen a huge lift in Peacock. People are taking in our content in a variety of different ways today, especially the younger audience, as we know.
Yep.
Much younger than you and I, of course, but I think it's all about the audience experience. We have the Haggerty fan walk like none other. You've been out there reporting, talking to fans, talking to drivers. It always gives me the chills because that's the part of engagement right away with the cars and the stars of the sport. We also, of course, have lifted up our website as a place to come in and gather more information, IMSA.com. And just this week we announced IMSA Fastlane. IMSA Fastlane is our toe dip in the water of NFTs, but not just NFTs from a collectible standpoint, but more from an experience standpoint. Fans can come out and have a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and you and I have had those throughout our career, whether it's working a corner or being in the broadcast booth, or for me, being on the pit box, and we need to do that more. Bring fans out and have them realize it. And ironically, the pandemic has opened that up for us. People wanting to get out, and what a better place than Watkins Glen or Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta or Sebring, where you can go to all these different corners, you can experience the circuit in so many different ways.
Well, that's, I like that idea a lot, because obviously, who can argue with watching race cars on a day like this? And even when it's in the rain, the real fans, they just love that and love that experience, to be sure. Social media nowadays is playing, is such a huge driver of so many things. But one of the things that I think sets IMSA apart from maybe your competition is the access that you guys provide. Open paddock, the grid, as you said, the Hagerty grid walk, just the opportunity for the fans to get up close and really see these cars and maybe even some of the drivers.
Yeah, I'm so proud of our teams, both in Porsche Carrera Cup, Lamborghini Super Trofeo, Mazda MX-5 Cup, obviously Michelin Pilot and WeatherTech. You see the fans almost going, they're walking the midway, they're walking through the paddock, and you see the teams actually going out and pulling them in.
Yep.
Hey, where are you from? Come see our car. Come put your young son or daughter in the seat. Like, as you know, again, my hair goes up on my arms, because that is what we experienced as young boys at the racetrack, and now we're giving that to the next generation. And there's no question, we as a sport have to identify that next generation of fan, of participant, because if we don't, we won't be here and be enjoying this sport for decades to come. And that's all I want, is to continue to give back myself, but for IMSA to give back and show people what motorsport, and specifically endurance sports car racing, is all about.
Well, building those young fans, that's how, as you said, it remains viable and has the opportunity for growth in the future. I want to quickly take one little change in tack.
Yeah.
We have seen, obviously, charities get involved in motorsports. Certainly IMSA has their preferred charities and the like. We're fortunate to be supported here by Race for RP, and having them step up and being I'm calling it the empowerment sponsor of our show here, and having those connections, obviously. To me, what makes this very special, our new show, and just the general blending of the charities and racing, is to combine the passion that we have for something in sports and combine it with the opportunity to do some real good in the world. And I think that is something very special we're seeing, because racing fans are so passionate, they will support it, they'll lock into it, and they'll help that grow as well.
You're exactly right. I mean, we of course have supported Camp Boggy Creek and the Austin Hatcher Foundation. What you all are doing, and what Race for RP is doing, another platform. Heart of Racing has done a ton with Seattle Children's Hospital. Josh Pearson, youngest driver in IMSA, youngest driver at Daytona, youngest driver at Le Mans, he's supporting Alzheimer's. So we do have a place as a sport to be a platform for good. And I think what people have decided to do through racing, it's, as you know, a powerful, no pun intended, way to get a message out. And I think our fans are very loyal. They're loyal to the products that help support us, WeatherTech, Michelin, VP, Konica Minolta, but they're also supportive as a community. And you've known this for years. When somebody in the community stumbles and needs help, a charity or our fans or our whole entire paddock rally around each other. And so by all means, Race for RP and the other charities are 100% a good way for us, not just to get our word out, but to get their message out to the broader audience.
Absolutely. And one of the wonderful things is so many drivers affiliated with them, in the days before a race, will come in and spend 2 days going to children's hospitals, going to burn units, going just spending time, letting people know that they're heard, they're valued, they're loved, and I think that's incredible. And I'll tell you, John, I know you're a busy man this weekend. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out and visit.
Thank you. It's so good to see you as always, and really appreciate what you all are doing, and appreciate everybody watching. We're doing our ever best to put on the best endurance sports car racing shows on the planet.
Well, and that you do incredibly well.
Well, I, for one, have never met anybody quite as driven and passionate as John Doonan is about motorsports in general. And since he's taken the helm of IMSA, of leading this series into a completely new era of its own. And they are well on its way, as you have heard. That's going to wrap up this week's episode of Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP. Obviously, a huge thanks to John Doonan for taking some time to visiting with us. As always, with my friend Calvin Fish for his insights and analysis of what's happening in the world of racing. A big thank you to Trent Nesteff for giving us a little bit of time to explain what's going on in his world in the Young Guns. And of course, Kyle Marcelli, the original Race for RP driver ambassador, for taking some time from his vacation land up north in Canada to spend a few moments. And thank you most of all for joining us here on Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP. We look forward to seeing you again next time. Until then, take care, everybody.